Hey, it's Gabriel. It's time for me to do my case study on the Quran. Culture insensitivity leads to the death and multiple apologies. This is the title for this case study. A misunderstanding in the United States usually results in an apology or some sort of compensation for the party offended. When there's a religious misunderstanding that takes place, again, an apology is usually the method for groups to solve an issue. If this issue cannot be solved civically, litigation takes place. But the First Amendment protects a wide range of Americans' actions due to the freedom of speech. This is not the case in other parts of the world, where democracy is not as widely practiced. A misunderstanding in other parts of the world can result in the loss of hundreds, maybe even thousands of innocent lives. In the Islamic faith, their devout followers are labeled as Muslims. The Muslim holy text is called the Quran, and is highly regarded as holy doctrine and needs to be handled appropriately and respected at all times, to the point of even free written scriptures. Afghanistan is the Islamic Republic with more than 99% of its citizens are Muslim. This culture is highly devout to their religion and has a precise protocol when it comes to handling their scripture. In this area of the world, there is no constitution to protect one's political, religious, or personal views on holy doctrine. When Islamic religion is insulted, a loss of life is almost always imminent. One instance that took place in Florida broke the horse's back for Islamic government officials as well as country of faithful enraged Muslims desiring justice to the most extreme degree. September 11, 2010, a pastor by the name of Terry Jones took it upon himself to broadcast to an online community of millions of him defacing the Quran by burning it at his church. This insensitive action elicited immediate morbid consequences. One of the consequences that emerged was a fatwa was placed on the pastor. A fatwa is a ruling on a point of Islamic law given by a recognized authority. A $2.4 million bounty was placed on Terry Jones's head. Aside from this, riots took place in Afghanistan which led to the death of 21 people, including 7 United Nations employees, and even over 150 injuries were recorded. One person's insensitive display of their faith resulted in the death of many innocent civilians across the other side of the planet. This was not the first incident of religious insensitivity done by an American. In 2005 in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, military personnel defiled a captive suspect Muslim radical's copy of the Quran. The officers supposedly flushed the doctrine, and soon as word of this reached Afghanistan, more riots took place, leading to the death of 17 more innocent individuals. What amazes me is after monitoring how the actions which took place due to the ignorance of a few, why weren't any procedures put in place to prevent further casualties? A 10-year war has been taking place between America and the Middle East. America has the advantage military-wise, but brute force does not diffuse hatred. In fact, it can fuel it even further. A generation of ill-educated, religiously guided, and highly funded individuals can reap havoc on numerous nations. An understanding will save more than an entire arsenal of the most advanced weapons on the market. My issue is that after seeing 2 people cost the lives of over 40, why didn't the Commander-in-Chief make it a priority to educate all government officials as well as soldiers on Islamic practices and taboos? Americans are some of the most studied individuals on the planet, yet the majority of Americans won't take the time to immerse themselves in the cultures or religions of others. If procedures were established to inform soldiers on Islamic customs from the start of the deployment to this area, the incident that took place on February 20th, 2012 could have been avoided entirely. Due to the ignorance of one translator's interpretation of what is classified as holy doctrine, hundreds of publications of Islamic doctrine from a detention center's library were ordered to be burned. It was not until the realization of Afghan workers of what atrocities were taking place did the commencement of the burning of these publications come to a halt. The doctrines were salvaged, but the damage had been dealt from the mixing of holy scriptures and garbage. Only days after the incident, riots provoked extremists who later caused the death of 30 Afghans and 4 American soldiers. A former advisor to the Afghan president was later questioned for comment, and he explained the reason this took place. They have been here for more than 10 years, and they still fail to understand the sensitiveness of Afghanistan. For Afghans, burning the Quran is unacceptable, unforgivable, and incompetent. NATO soldiers were harshly criticized for the lack of time brushing up on Afghanistan values. NATO implemented a full investigation in order to prevent similar actions like this taking place in the near future, and President Barack Obama wrote a 3-page apology for the ignorance of those soldiers under his orders. After this investigation took place, a mandatory pre-deployment language culture training, which had been issued, had revealed that this training did not provide specifics on handling Islamic religious material. New training procedures were put in place requiring soldiers to take a training to better educate themselves on handling Islamic doctrine and learning enough about the culture to prevent any taboos in the future. This case study really did strike home for me. I've had Muslim friends, I've had Muslim roommates, so I have 4 questions this week instead of 2. I'm sorry. My first question is, why did it take the death of innocent people before the measures were put in place to enforce peace? My second question is, do civilians and soldiers alike have enough knowledge about other countries' customs in order to know when they're being disrespectful? My third question is, why do we not learn about other countries' religious practices and history up until we have the option in college or previously privatized elementary education? My fourth question is, will racial insensitivity affect the outcome of this 2016 election? Thank you guys. As always, it's Gabrielle.